Hello, everyone, Nat 1995 here in the video game fanfic plot with a new story for you all. It is called A Spark of Life. And remember, I do not own this story and I give full credit to its author, that is Kiera27 on fanfiction.net, and this a Harry Potter crossover with Transformers. Now on to the story, A Spark of Life. By Kiera27. Harry never expected to find out that he had another aunt in the US that didn't think he was a freak. Of course, he also didn't expect to be caught in a war between two factions of giant robots. Harry / Sam / Michaela / possible human transformer / the aunt. Samuel Witwicky was at his wits' end, and he knew that things were about to get a whole lot more confusing. He had been thrilled when his father finally caved in and decided to get him a car, only to find that it was going to come from one of the most pathetic looking used car places he had ever seen. When he had managed to get his hands on the only decent looking car in the lot, a yellow Camaro, he thought that for once his luck was actually looking up, only to find out that his relatives from England that he had never met were going to be staying in town and were going to be dropping by to go out for dinner. The only thing that he knew about them was their names and the basic backstories that his mother had peppered him with just an hour ago. Vernon Dursley was a rather large man that worked as an accountant for a company called Grunnings and was on a company-paid vacation. Petunia Dursley was his mother's sister, and due to a fight that they had had over their other sister, his mother refused to tell him anything else about that. They hadn't spoken for years now. Dudley Dursley was also fairly large and was held back 1 year in school for a reason that his parents wouldn't say, and his mother confessed that he sounded like a spoiled brat. The only one that Sam was actually looking forward to meeting was Harry Potter. He's the son of the sister that his aunt and mother argued over, who died when he was 1.5 years old, and his mother said that he was very reserved and seemed to be quite intelligent if somewhat shy. Sam trudged down the stairs to join his father in slouching on the couch watching HGTV while waiting for the Dursleys and Potter to show up. Harry sighed as he sat in the back of Vernon's rental car while the other members of his family endeavored to ignore the fact that he even existed. He hoped that this new aunt that he hadn't even known about would be just a little nicer than Petunia, but his hopes weren't very high. He had been noticeably shocked when he had returned to the Dursleys. It certainly wasn't home, after his 4th year, to find the family packed up to go on a trip that they apparently had to take him on, and they let him know that they weren't happy about it. It wasn't until they were on the plane, where he didn't have to fear immediate retribution, that he worked up the courage to ask where they were going. He almost had a heart attack when he found out that they were visiting a sister of Petunia's and his mother that lived in the States. He hadn't even known that she existed. The moment that they plane touched down in the airport, they flew into a rush of preparations that included, much to the Dursleys' chagrin, getting him a suit and several changes of clothes so that he did not look like a street urchin when they arrived at the Witwicky residence. After all, they couldn't have this sister of Petunia's think that they were not treating him right, as if there was any way they could say that they cared. It was obvious to anyone that paid any attention at all that he was much too small for someone his age, and that he couldn't stop himself from flinching every time someone made a swift motion or touched him without telling him first. The problem came from the fact that most people didn't pay that much attention to the quiet boy that followed the Dursleys from a safe distance. "Boy, you had better be on your best behavior, and there better not be the slightest sign of your freakishness while we are in this country, or there will be hell to pay. Do you understand me, boy?" Vernon's face was puce, and he smacked the boy on the back of the head, where no one would see the damage, when he didn't answer the question fast enough. Harry quickly readjusted the glasses on his face and made sure not to look any higher than Vernon's knees. No need to make him even angrier after all. "Yes, sir." Judy had long since cut the television off and could be found pacing in front of the occupied couch going over last-minute details. "They should be getting here any time now, and then we'll be going out to dinner before coming back here to relax for several hours. I actually managed to convince Petunia to let Harry stay here with us because she said that the hotel room she was able to book didn't really have enough room to house all of them." Judy knew it was a lie, but anything that got the boy away from them was a welcome thing. "He'll be bunking down with you, Sam, so you better make sure that he feels right at home. Dinner was one of the most uncomfortable meals that had ever been had between relatives in centuries, to say the very least. The two Dursley males spent the entire time shoving not only their own food but all of Petunia's and Harry's down with a speed that made all but Petunia sick to their stomachs, while Petunia tried to make small talk with a highly reluctant Judy. Dudley managed to get accepted into Smeltings and has already made so many new friends, and I'm sure that he'll be the spitting image of his father when he gets older, enough to drive women wild. Everyone was so stunned at the woman's words that the natural instinct to laugh was dulled. He's so much better than this runt of a boy. She sent a glare at Harry that was almost enough to bend steel, though compared to Snape it was highly pathetic. He's about as useless as that worthless father of his was, and our whore of a sister. The smack that rang through the restaurant was enough to make everyone in the building immediately stop whatever they were doing. Even the two Dursley males paused in their attempt to inhale all of the food in sight. Judy was standing over a stunned Petunia with her face set in an expression that clearly spelled only bad things for her older sister. "How could you say such horrible things about your own flesh and blood? Are you really that hateful? Lily never did a single thing to deserve those words. She tried to make peace with you so many times and you just stuck that huge nose up in the air like you were better when she was twice the woman and obviously twice the mother that you are now." The disgust in her eyes was obvious as she eyed the food that was still hanging out of Dudley's mouth. "I thought that maybe after so many years that you would have managed to grow up. I should have known that you would still be the same jealous little shrew that you were back then." Judy didn't even give Petunia the time to think up a comeback, though the chances of that are pretty low anyway. "Harry, darling, we are going to get your things out of the car and you're going to be staying at my house until I get the paperwork processed to keep you." It could be considered a great testament to the awe and fear that the small woman generated that no one dared to contradict her and instead followed along like a litter of puppies. Ron was the only one among them that had expected her to do something like this, and even he was stunned by the force his wife was truly capable of. It wasn't until Sam was helping Harry drag his trunk into his room that Harry seemed to snap out of the daze that he was in. "Is your mother always like that?" Harry had thought that Mrs. Weasley was a force to be reckoned with, but she didn't hold a candle to the fury that Judy Witwicky had unleashed onto Petunia. Sam couldn't stop the smile that spread across his face as they maneuvered the trunk to the foot of his bed through the small mountain of teenage boy crap. "Yeah, she's one scary woman, especially with a bat." Sam found the odd look that crossed Harry's face to be one of the cutest things he had ever seen, not that he was likely to tell anyone that even with the pain of death being hung over his head. Harry was nothing like Sam had expected him to be. He was built incredibly small. At a distance it was hard to tell if he was a boy or a girl, and he looked a good deal younger than he really was. His hair was long, a little past his shoulders, and looked like he had just rolled out of bed. Sam's favorite feature was definitely the eyes, though. They were a brilliant emerald green and looked huge behind those Coke bottle glasses. They ended up sliding into bed not too long after they got home, each trying to stay on their own side, though it wasn't long until Harry ended up laying halfway on top of Sam in an unconscious attempt to keep warm with a chilly wind that was flowing through the open window. Harry was incredibly confused the next morning when he awoke to find himself alone on Sam's half of the bed. He normally wasn't a heavy sleeper, but he had been so tired last night that he could have slept through a Death Eater attack without it, which he changed into a fresh set of the clothes that the Dursleys had been forced to buy him before he trudged downstairs to find Judy making what looked to be omelets, while Ronald, he somehow couldn't think of him as Ron, watched some kind of do-it-yourself show on the television. Judy looked up at him the moment that his foot hit the last stair, which made an ominous squeak that he committed to memory, and graced him with a smile that put Mrs. Weasley to shame. "Morning there, sweetheart. You just sit down on the couch and we'll get breakfast started as soon as Sam manages to get himself out of bed." Harry cocked his head to the side as he moved toward the couch. "I thought he had already come down. He wasn't in bed when I woke up." Harry had spent the day with Judy after Ronald had went to work and found that she was one of the most spirited, if dingy, women that he had ever met. He hoped that his mother was more like her than Petunia. He was relaxing in Sam's room when Sam arrived home. Through the window, with a girl that looked like she could have jumped off one of the Playboys in Sam's little trunk that he had run into earlier. He was up and hitting Sam upside the head before he even realized that he had moved. He didn't know why he was so comfortable, but he wasn't going to question it. "Where on this earth have you been all day, Samuel Witwicky? You didn't even wake me up to tell me you were leaving. Your mother and I have been worried about you all day. You didn't even call to let us know you were all right." The girl stifled a giggle and drew Harry's attention. "Who is your new lady friend, and why is there a large robot thing glaring through the window?" Harry barely managed to hold in his yell with a supreme effort. After all, he had faced down a dragon, he could handle a giant robot. He cut Sam off before he could start what looked to be a very long explanation. "Never mind, I don't think that it's that important right now." He turned to the girl that looked almost as overwhelmed right now as he felt. "My name is Harry Potter and I'm Sam's younger cousin. It's very nice to meet you." She looked stunned for a moment before she answered. "The name is Michaela Baines and it seems I ended up getting involved in an alien struggle with Sam. We need to find a pair of old glasses that belong to an ancestor of Sam's." The robot, alien, or whatever it was, decided to choose that moment to lean closer to the window and speak. The voice sounded like it was coming out of a busted speaker, which isn't all that surprising. "We must hurry and find the glasses, Samuel Witwicky." Harry walked over to the window and leaned out to find that there were several of the robot things all over the yard as he ignored the other two teens that were frantically sorting through the mess of Sam's room. "I have a relatively high tolerance for weird and unusual things, but a giant talking robot with impatience issues is a bit more than I am willing to overlook, and I'm sure that Sam's parents and the nosy neighbors would be even more unnerved. So if you would like to avoid having every branch of the US military trying to find a way to blow you up, I would advise finding a way to hide yourself while I find those glasses before Sam manages to wake the dead." His voice managed to stay perfectly even as he spoke, and he turned back to the room, leaving several robots staring after him in shock for a moment before they turned around to transform into their alts to wait. Harry sighed as he saw Michaela going for the Playboy hiding place at the same moment that Sam noticed and snatched it from her. This was going to be a long night. Well, that's the ending of that chapter. I do hope you enjoy this video. If you like to see more, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment down below. Until next time.